Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio, where we provide actionable health information on a week-to-week basis that can help you improve your life. Feel free to head over to justinhealth.com, where we have various opt-in video series on more in-depth health topics such as female hormones, thyroid, and gut health. Also, while you're there, feel free and schedule a consult with myself, Dr. J, and or my colleagues. We're available worldwide to provide natural health support for any of your major health issues. Again, welcome to the podcast and enjoy the show. Hey, Evan, it's Dr. J here. How are we doing today, man? Really excited for a great podcast. What's happening?
Doing very well. We're going to dive into a mysterious podcast. You have so many people that say, you know what? I gained 10 pounds, I gained 15 pounds, I gained 20, I gained 25, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds mysteriously. I didn't change anything. Quote, what the heck is going on? So we hope to shed some light on this, because if you go down the street to your conventional doctor and you tell them, hey, doc, I gained 20 pounds, what's going on? 95% of the time, my clients have reported, the doctors tell them, you're just getting old. This just happens when you get old. Things slow down and you gain weight, you get more tired, you get weird lumps on your skin. It's just part of aging, and I disagree.
100%. I mean, your weight is a pretty good sign of your metabolism. It's a pretty good sign of inflammation as well. So we call like your tummy or your gut like the inflammation meter. And of course, there are a lot of variables, right? Common sense things like eating too much, and then obviously exercise. These play big roles, right? Now, there's also the macronutrient content of the foods that you're eating, right? Protein, fats, and carbs. And we know the carbohydrate connection, right, all the way back from Dr. Atkins with, the more processed the carbs or the more refined they are or the more starchy, the more those carbs break down to glucose and fructose, the more that's going to stimulate insulin release. And the more the insulin is secreted by your pancreas, the more chance your cells are going to be numb to it if you're not exercising or more active. So, of course, insulin then opens up the gates for glucose and fructose to be stored as fat or glycogen in the liver, and then obviously fat in your cells. So, of course, there's a big insulin component. A lot of people know it. They just don't really know how to test it or how to quantify it. So that's kind of a common sense thing. We know people have been talking about that for years. And how we look at that is we'll look at fasting insulin levels, and we'll even do a functional glucose tolerance test to see how your body handles glucose and or sugar like fructose, okay? So we have typical table sugar, which is sucrose, which is like half and half glucose, fructose. We have high fructose corn syrup, which is 55-45 fructose to glucose. These are going to go into our body. They're going to stimulate insulin release. They're going to get stored as glycogen in our muscles, or if it's more fructose, it'll be stored as glycogen in the liver. Once those sources are stored and they're at capacity, it's like a rag that you're cleaning up your kid's mess on the table with. It's full. It needs to be wrung out. Once it's full, all that glucose and fructose gets stored as fat. So that's one of the first ones. So we'll look at a functional glucose tolerance. We'll look at a fasting level of glucose, and then we'll do a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour after a meal, and we'll see how fast those glucose levels come down. The faster they come down, the less insulin spike to make it come down. So ideally between 120 and 140 within an hour, and ideally below 100 within 2 hours, and definitely below 100 within 3. That's kind of my frame of reference. And then ideally in the sweet spot on a fasting insulin, we want our insulin levels between 2 and 5, definitely below 7, if we're going to be testing our blood levels of insulin fasting in the morning.
Yeah, well said. And this is not something commonly tested, right? I don't recall. I mean, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people send just standard blood work they've got from their conventional MD, and fasting insulin is rarely on there as standard protocol. Is that correct?
It's 100% not on there.
Okay.
You'll see glucose on there, but nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
not
A1C.
even A1C. Yeah, maybe A1C if you had some sort of history or if you were actually confirmed diabetic. But, I've looked on many people and they don't even do A1C. It's like, I don't know how much we run it for. Maybe $12, $20. I mean, A1C is cheap to add on. I just can't believe it's not standard procedure.
I don't love A1C because it can definitely be a little bit higher. The healthier your blood cells are, and the longer your blood cells live, they can accumulate more sugar or more glucose over time. So there is that component. So I don't love it, but it's nice to have. It's nice to look at for sure. I agree.
Better than not having it, wouldn't you say?
Yep, I agree. As long as you can look at it in context of the whole big picture, and if someone has a false high, you don't go over the top. That's why I like my functional glucose tolerance test with the at-home blood sugar meter the best.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Yeah, that's the low-hanging fruit, right? People, you could look back at even just in the 1950s. I mean, the obesity rates were nothing to what they are today. I know my grandparents' grandparents were out on 300 acres and eating chickens in the backyard, and they ate lard every day. None of them died of heart disease. They all lived into their 80s and 90s. They were outside working the land, getting exercise and sunlight every day. They were eating foods that were likely much, much richer in micronutrients and minerals because the soil wasn't depleted. Glyphosate and other herbicides weren't invented yet, so they weren't getting those low-dose antibiotics, killing the good diversity. It's possible that, and this is just me casually transitioning into the next point, this could be all related to an imbalance of bacteria in the gut. Why don't we talk about dysbiosis? Because you and I look at the GI map stool test, and if we look at firmicutes that are elevated or other bad bacteria, that can make you fat.
100%. So, of course, inflammation plays a huge role in your metabolism, right? Inflammation is going to cause more cortisol to be secreted. High levels of cortisol, it's an anti-inflammatory, but it also creates a mobilization of sugar or glucose. So people think, well, like, oh, I'm not eating a whole bunch of glucose or carbohydrate, but you could be surging a whole bunch of cortisol because of the inflammation, and that cortisol could be mobilizing glucose. And so this is why it's important that if you are surging a little bit more inflammation, going for a walk, doing a little bit of a CrossFit or an interval or some kind of a circuit training to kind of take that glucose and soak it up can be helpful. Because the higher that level of glucose is up because of inflammation, your cells get numb to insulin. So that same thing of eating too much carbohydrates that's driving up insulin, that same thing can actually happen from inflammation. So independent of just the carbohydrates. So you may have carbs coming in, let's say from gluten, right? But then you have the inflammation component. The more gluten sensitive you are, that can also surge more cortisol, which can then also create more glucose than what you actually ate in the actual bread to begin with, and that creates more insulin resistance, more cortisol mobilizing sugar. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, and if you've got the cortisol issue, that's affecting your gut barrier further, which is then allowing infections to create more inflammation. So it can become a vicious cycle. What do you think about, so for me, I lost weight when I had all the gut infections. Certain people will see they gain weight, and when you get rid of their infections, all of a sudden their weight normalizes and the 20 pounds they gain go back to normal. Do you have any thoughts on why some people lose weight, some people gain weight? Do you think it depends on the type of infection or what?
Yes, it definitely depends on the type of infection. It also depends on the individual. Some people can kind of be more prone to be in an ectomorph stage, or as they go lower calorie, or as they have malabsorption, they drop weight. Some people gain weight. It's just, I don't really have an exact rhyme or reason why. I tend to see over time, though, people will eventually start gaining weight over time. And whether it's gaining weight because their body fat goes up and their muscle mass goes down and their weight still stays the same, they're still going to be losing high quality lean muscle mass over time. You're never going to see someone's body fat drop and then also have their muscle mass go up or stay the same. So usually there's still going to be a reduction in their high quality muscle even if they are dropping weight. You'll become more sarcopenic, right?
Yeah.
You may lose a little bit of weight, but you're also going to lose muscle mass, bone mass, etc. So in the short run, though, why you lost weight versus someone else, it's hard to say. There's probably some genetic variations there, and that may be different from you in your 20s to you in your 50s, right? So it may be a variation of just where you're at metabolically, and as you get older, that may change. But either way, this is why we focus on body composition when weight loss is occurring, because you could have weight loss but muscle mass is dropping, right? So the body composition really matters the most, and you can actually gain weight and have muscle mass drop as well. So these are important components to keep in mind. Muscle mass really matters the most, and it's one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's why getting a little bit of move, whether it's push-ups or pull-ups or some body weight stuff, or we talk about doing some circuit stuff, some interval stuff to kind of keep the muscle mass there, is really, really, really important.
Good answer. I definitely lost muscle. I definitely lost strength. Some people, they'll say, oh, I wish I had a parasite and I could lose 20 pounds without trying. It's like, no, you don't. Trust me, that's not a good way to lose weight at all. And the weight that you're losing is not body fat. Your body's going to hold on to that body fat. It's not like you're magically going to get six-pack abs if you get gut bugs. Trust me. You're losing muscle, you're losing strength, you're losing, like you mentioned, possibly bone density, bone strength as well. So not a good thing to have. And we know that just addressing those gut infections could be huge. So you mentioned the whole insulin cortisol connection, but a lot of what we would consider low-hanging fruit for us, because we do it all the time, every day, all day with people, is we help them to test and fix gut infections. So if it's an H. pylori issue causing low stomach acid, you've then got the malabsorption of food, the body sort of freaking out, looking for nutrients. It's like, okay, I'm not getting well fed, well nourished. Let's go into fat storage mode because we're not getting fed well. Even though the quality is good, it could be a grass-fed steak. If the absorption is so bad, it can still trigger that fat storage mode in the body because you're not getting the nutrients you need.
100%. And again, you can have a lot of carbohydrate-rich food and a lot of caloric-rich food and not have the nutrients you need. So in general, you kind of already alluded to it. You need B vitamins, you need CoQ10, you need alpha lipoic acid, you need carnitine, you need a lot of these important nutrients to run your mitochondria, to run fatty acid oxidation so you can generate ATP, which is the cellular currency for energy in the body, so you can burn fat for fuel. You need all the B vitamin nutrients for your Krebs cycle, right? Or to run and generate, basically to gain all these hydrogens, right? We call it, they're reducing compounds, FADH2 and NADH. They dump all these hydrogens into the electron transport chain, and this generates more fuel, 36 to 38 ATPs going through glycolysis to the Krebs cycle to electron transport chain, right? And fatty acid oxidation. So these are very important pathways to generate energy. And when you have someone who's gaining weight, what that tells me over time is they're an energy storer, not an energy burner. And we really want our body to be in this energy burning mode, because burning means that our body isn't allocating it to fat, right? Fat storage. So when we're allocating it to fat, that means our body's kind of saving it for a rainy day, which may be okay if we're saving financially, but not necessarily if we're saving and we want to be, lean and have good muscle mass.
So let's keep unpacking what you're saying, because this is important. We've had people say, well, I'm doing keto, I'm doing little to no carbs, I still can't lose weight. What the heck is going on? And I know this isn't the only mechanism, but let me say this one, and then if you want to build on it, my thought is and I've had people who say, I'm full carnivore, I'm just eating a grass-fed steak a couple times a day or something, like I have zero carbs, why am I not losing weight, or why am I even gaining weight? My argument would be, as you mentioned, the carnitine and all the nutrients you need to fuel those cycles. If you're not absorbing or assimilating that grass-fed steak due to low HCl, infections of some sort, inflammation in the gut, it doesn't matter if the food itself is good, because you're still not getting the nutrients you need to run those cycles.
Correct. So if we are going lower carb, we want to make sure we're consuming, for the most part, on a ketogenic template, unlimited amounts of non-starchy vegetables. For the most part, it's fine. Most people are going to be in that 20 to 30, maybe 40 net carb grams per day, and you're looking at 3 to 4 carbs net with your green vegetable serving. So you can be at 8 to 10 servings a day on your green vegetables, and you're probably going to be in that ketogenic range. So that the vegetables tend to not be a problem, and you can do organic and make sure the nutrient density is high. You can also consume things like organ meats and obviously high-quality grass-fed, pasture-fed meats and egg yolks and all those things that are nutrient dense. So we can make sure those foods are there and in the diet. Some of the hidden things could be, like you mentioned, Evan, with you, is having inflammation in the gut from infections, not having enough stomach acid or enzymes or bile salts. So those foods overwhelm the system and may actually create more inflammation because we can't digest them. So there also is that as an X factor. We have to keep that in the back of our head. Most people are going to lose weight dropping carbohydrates if their carbohydrates were previously high, just because for 1 molecule of glucose, there's 3 or 4 molecules of water right behind it, okay? So as you drop down the glucose, you drop down water weight. And so, of course, you're going to see that as well. That's like a no-brainer. So most people off the bat are going to see some level of drop, if not just the insulin dropping, then the glucose drop, or the glucose dropping, then the insulin dropping, and then the insulin dropping the water, and then the water, and then the sodium. And so you're going to see a massive reduction in water weight, okay? Now, if we're struggling and we're still not seeing that weight reduction, we're going to have to look at the gut. We're going to have to look at the inflammation in the food. We're going to have to look at how you're digesting the food. Is that food nutrient dense? And then if we're looking at all those things and we've still been following this for a solid month or two and we're still having problems, that's where we have to look at the adrenals, aka cortisol rhythm. That's where we're looking at the female or male hormones. Definitely more with the females. Females are going to struggle more because if they're already in estrogen dominance, right, that's already going to create more storage hormones there, like insulin, right? Because estrogen's kind of a growth hormone, so that could promote more fat growth as well. And then, of course, thyroid. And it could be a low thyroid. It could be a thyroid conversion issue. It could be an autoimmune issue. And a lot of people improve their thyroid going keto because, one, insulin does affect thyroid conversion. And when you're typically going keto, you're not eating grains and things that could stimulate autoimmunity. So kind of like there's a lot of people out there that are like, keto's the solution, but what if you're that person? It's not. Why? And that's where functional medicine comes in, where we look at those next levels above, and then we have to get more specific.
Yeah, here's another hidden part of this whole issue too, since you brought up estrogen, is when we're looking at someone's stool panel, we'll see the enzyme, the beta-glucuronidase enzyme that goes high, typically due to dysbiosis. There's other causes as well. But when this enzyme malfunctions, if your gut's not working properly, now you're going to recirculate estrogen. So even if you weren't taking an estrogen birth control pill or anything like that, you're like, you know what, why would I have excess estrogen? Well, it could be what you've had in your body is just simply getting recirculated, and that'll cause tons of issues. And so part of our goal is we have to get that enzyme functioning properly. And some people lose weight just by doing that. I mean, it could be simple as fix the gut and they lose 20 pounds. We see it every day.
110%. So the gut's a really important component. And then the hormones play a really important role as well. And we already talked about how important healthy gut function is for detoxification, or we have in previous podcasts. Healthy gut function is important. That's where we eliminate our stool. We eliminate a lot of toxins via heavy metals or mold via the hepatobiliary system. That's liver, gallbladder, into the gut, out the stool, or liver, gut, kidneys, out the urine. So there's a lot of different ways that we eliminate. Now, to dive in one step above, we'll kind of get there, is things like mold and mycotoxins can slow down thyroid. There's different studies on like the mold toxin zearalenone. They actually put that mold toxin in the ears of cows, and they do that because the cows actually convert more of their calories to fat when they expose them to that mold toxin. So we know different molds can slow down thyroid function. They can affect T4 to T3 conversion, and they can cause more fat gain. So mold can definitely be a component in this whole thing. And it's not the first thing I go to. It's not the low-hanging fruit. But if we do a good history and we address the other things and we're still at a standstill, then it's something that we can definitely dive into, especially if history leads us there.
Yeah, my wife and I, we were looking back at some pictures of ourselves, and we both lost weight. We just blamed it on my wife breastfeeding all the time. We thought, oh, she's just, putting out so many calories. She's not eating enough. We're pretty low carb. Maybe she wasn't eating enough. But we both had lost weight, and then once we improved our air quality, we both gained our weight back. So I could confirm that your weight could go either way, just like it can with gut infections. You could lose weight when you're exposed to mold, or you could gain weight. So it can go either way. Now, for those that have been following for a while, you may know this, but if not, Dr. J is working on a thyroid book. So I want you to maybe give us a little more insight on this thyroid mechanism. You mentioned it, but what specifically is going on? Is it the antibodies that's the problem? Is it just thyroid receptor sites being blocked? What's going on when you're saying thyroid is one of those pieces of the weight gain?
So mold toxins can affect thyroid conversion, T4 to T3 conversion. You can see an increase in reverse T3, which is our inactive thyroid hormone. It's kind of like someone being in the parking lot, right? And instead of having an open parking spot, someone just kind of puts some cones in the parking spots, right? And then so you can't go park in there because there's a cone there. Well, imagine the receptor side is the parking spot and the thyroid hormone is the car. Well, if you got a whole bunch of parking spots that you wanted to park in, but now they have a cone in it, well, you can't dock, right? That thyroid hormone can't work, right? Think of the cones as reverse T3. It's blocking the receptor site for thyroid hormone, your car, from being able to use it. So that's a big role. And thyroid increases your metabolism, heat, energy, etc. So there's that. Also, your body.
So that's the mechanism. So that's the mechanism that people need to know. It's that And I think of it kind of like a blank bullet too. So you're saying that if that cone is in the way, no matter if the blood level, so you're saying like free T3 could look okay, but if you've got elevated reverse T3, that free T3 can't get into the receptor, therefore the metabolism never fires, right? The spark plug doesn't fire, is that correct?
And usually with higher levels of reverse T3, free T3 starts to go down because you only have so much T3 building block or T4 building block, and it's either going to go to T3 or reverse T3, okay? And the more reverse T3 is increasing, that means less of it's actually going to the active T3. And then the more reverse T3, it makes that active T3 that's there even less viable. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's like a diversion. I'm picturing like a garden hose with one of those little two-way splitters.
Bingo.
And I had this. I remember you and I looked at this on my blood. I had reverse T3 almost to a 30, which is really high at one point. And basically the diverter switch was flipped. And so luckily that is now resolved and I feel much better.
100%. So
you're really tired too. I want to mention that too because I want people to know, well, okay, you're all getting into this receptor site and all that. Well, how does that affect me on my day-to-day life? Well, I'll tell you, from someone who had high reverse T3, you can feel it. You feel that you can't push the gas pedal. It's as if somebody put a rock under the gas pedal and you now can't get the pedal to the metal. So you're lethargic. You just feel blah. Your mood is not as good. Your energy is not as good.
100%.
So therefore, these are the people who are like, oh, I know you're telling me to go do high-intensity interval training. I friggin' can't do it. And it's because of that issue. And so sometimes you have to work backwards, meaning you've got to resolve elevated reverse T3. You've got to resolve the gut issues to even get the mitochondria working enough to give you the ATP so that you're actually have enough energy in the tank to do the exercise that you know will make you feel better.
Correct. So then you have the mole toxins, right, affecting thyroid conversion and activation. Also, what affects the conversion? Well, typically the enzymes, the deiodinase enzyme, the 5' deiodinase enzyme, is coming from the liver. It's coming from selenium. So, of course, if the liver is more burdened, right, and glutathione pathways and detoxification pathways are stressed, it makes sense why the conversion may be affected because the detoxification pathways are impaired. And then our body, like, it's always trying to sequester things. Like, it's going to try to flush things out first, but then if it really has a hard time, it'll store things in the fat second. So the body will tend to store things more on the fat side of the fence just to kind of keep it sequestered. It's kind of like your kids running around causing a whole bunch of problems in the home. You know, you're probably going to say, go to timeout or go to your room, right? So they're not running around causing a ruckus. It's kind of the same thing with the toxins in your body. Hey, mold, I want you to go in the fat cell, right? That's kind of what's happening there. And of course, the more fat cell you have, the more the body wants to store there. It's just like that. It's just kind of, it creates momentum in regards to fat storage and slows down the metabolism. And of course, the less selenium and glutathione you have, the less the thyroid's going to be supported. And then if you have, God forbid, autoimmune issues, now that autoimmunity is going to be tamped up, and it's going to be harder for the body to modulate or downgrade that inflammatory immune response.
And that's because you've basically gone into attack mode, right? Now you've got the cop shooting the wrong bad guy. It hit your thyroid. Now the thyroid could be damaged, and therefore it could produce less active hormone. Is that right? So, I mean, after years and years of thyroid damage, you literally can produce less. Is that true? Correct.
And then also the nutrients needed to quench that inflammatory response is too busy dealing with the mold toxins. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then kind of a very similar mechanism, again, with heavy metals. Very similar, again, with heavy metals, mercury, lead. Are they going to be the big two? And then we also have like cadmium, arsenic, aluminum, those kind of ones as well. So, of course, we have those kind of having a very similar mechanism, as I just mentioned, stressing out thyroid conversion, potentially affecting autoimmunity, being stored in the fat cell, creating stress on our metabolism.
Yeah, and how does this look? Because people are like, oh, heavy metals, right? It just sounds so kind of airy-fairy in the air. This could be as simple as and we've seen this. We've seen dozens of cases like this. Someone goes in for a routine dental procedure. They go get a major deep cleaning done while they have silver, quote, silver fillings, which are 53% mercury. They go get a deep cleaning. After their deep cleaning, the person is scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing. They're getting millions and millions of microparticles of mercury into the brain via inhalation. They're swallowing it into the gut. Correct. And boom, all of a sudden I gained 20 pounds after a dental procedure. What was a dental procedure? Oh, it was a deep cleaning. Bingo. And then if we need to, we could do like some sort of provocation and then run a urine heavy metal screen to look for this on paper. But if we just go in and do the binders and such to actually get rid of heavy metals, sometimes we could just confirm using an educated guess and a history. All of a sudden, the heavy metal protocol we use, boom, they lost 20 pounds. It could be that simple.
Yeah, it definitely can be that simple. So we have to look at everything holistically. So I think we hit the mold toxin, we hit the heavy metals. We talked about a lot of just general inflammation. We talked about some of the hormones. We talked about cortisol. We talked about, of course, exercise. What exercise does is it's going to help decrease insulin. It's going to help improve insulin sensitivity, and it's going to help make more space in our muscle for the glycogen too, which is helpful.
Justin's cat is in the background. She is interested in glycogen too. She wants to increase her glycogen by getting fed. Yeah, the exercise piece.
Exactly.
Well, actually, it's a boy though, isn't it?
Yeah, Dexter.
Dexter wants to get his glycogen reserves up. And so regarding the exercise piece, you see why people get this wrong. And it's not their fault. It's just you don't know what you don't know. They think, okay, I just need a $10 gym membership, and I'm just going to go pound the weights, and magically I'm going to lose weight, right? Because diet and exercise, those are the two variables that everyone on Good Morning America talks about. Look at this celebrity trainer. If I just do what he does, I'm going to friggin' get in shape. And it's like, maybe if you don't have all these other root causes, but the problem is everyone in the modern world, based on looking at thousands of toxic people are very toxic. It's not that easy anymore. Maybe 100 years ago it would have been that easy, but now there's so many other variables we have to get out of the way, so many other roadblocks.
Yeah, and everyone can at least start out. They can at least try it. They can start going with it. That's fine. And then if they have an issue, then they at least know why. We're on their radar. We're kind of in the back of their head. Or if they're going through all the exercise stuff and they're just the exercise is beating them up and they're just feeling like crap, then there's at least a next level we can go to if we need.
Well, I knew something was wrong with me when I was having 3 to 4 day recovery times, when I previously had 1 to 2 day recovery times, even though the intensity of the workout wasn't much different. And also when I was getting diminishing returns. So I'd put in the work and my weight or muscle mass or strength would stay relatively the same. I thought something is not right. And then that's when I found out I had gut infection. It's like, okay, I've been getting robbed of all of my amino acids. I can't even manufacture more muscle mass right now until these infections resolve. And then here's the funny thing. I literally started building muscle, looking more fit with less exercise than I did before. Here I was working so hard.
Yeah.
I worked out less. All I did was clear the infections. And then, boom, the muscle came on. And people might argue, well, oh, Evan, you were just overtraining and the cortisol was eating away your muscle tissue. No. I'm talking like going from 3 days a week exercising 20 to 30 minutes to like 1 or 2 days a week. And I gained more muscle that way. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yep. That can definitely be a thing, you know? So I think we hit a lot of the really important things here regarding the diet component, which is foundational. And that's going to be your 80-20, you know? That's where 20% of, 20% of the results are going to happen. 80% of the results are going to happen from those 20% right there. Okay, then everything else gets a little bit more nuanced, and that's where we layer and stack in functional medicine as a good next option. And then, of course, all the different toxic things and the hormonal components and the gut and the absorption stuff. That all makes sense. Anything you want to add to that?
The good news is you can resolve this. And so if you do a good workup on somebody, you can find out exactly what's going on. Now, we may not go straight away to doing the blood work. We may not go straight away to doing the cortisol. It really just depends on your history. We're going to ask you about sleep. We're going to ask you about stress. We're going to ask you timeline. So when did all this happen? Like we talked about the lady who got the dental cleaning and all of a sudden she gained weight after the dental cleaning. Or, oh, you gained 20 pounds after the divorce. Or you gained 20 pounds after you moved into this new house, right? So we're going to base our lab testing investigation protocol on what gets uncovered during the history. So you can't take that lady who got the dental cleaning and assume that that's your issue, right? You really want to stack all the puzzle pieces out on the table together and just see, okay, look, she's got some mercury here. She's got the gut inflammation over here. She's got the elevated cortisol at night. She had water damage in her basement. You see, and then we start adding all those puzzle pieces. So that way you can get her 20% better there, 20% better there, and then you get the person fully well. So if something in the gym is not working, you don't feel like it's not working, there's probably something going on under the hood. And not always, but as we've talked about, we've tested thousands of people. Modern humans are extremely toxic, from gasoline additives to paints. nail polish, hairspray, hair color, the pesticides and herbicides, the pharmaceuticals that are in tap water. I mean, there's endocrine disrupting chemicals in the tap water. If you're not drinking filtered water, and we're not talking just a fridge filter, that's not sufficient. You could get fat just from drinking tap water. And people say, oh, that's ridiculous. No, it's not. You can look at the studies on the Environmental Working Group, and many other people have done studies on tap water across the U.S. and across globally, and trace amounts. We're talking parts per million of certain drugs like antibiotics and birth control pills and things can end up in the water supply, therefore affecting hormones, therefore making you fat. So it's no surprise when you look at the amount of toxins, it goes up like a hockey stick, just like the obesity rate. Can you blame all obesity on toxins? No, but I think it's a huge part of the puzzle.
110%. 110%. Yeah, I agree, man. That's really, really important. So I think you hit some really important components there regarding the food stuff, inflammation, toxins. I think we did a really good job kind of laying everything out. Is there anything else you want to touch upon here?
I don't think so, unless you had any questions. I don't have any on my side.
Well, I think there's one more thing I want to highlight. People talk about eating too much or too much calories. Now, that's always a possibility, but the problem is when you're consuming good fats and good proteins and your blood sugar is not on a roller coaster ride and the food's nutrient dense that you're eating, the odds of overeating gets lower because of the fact, one, you have nutritional density. Two, protein and fat signals a lot of satiating compounds in the brain. Adiponectin, peptide YY. It's going to stimulate cholecystokinin. A lot of these things are going to help you feel satiated and help you feel full. So it's harder to overeat fats and proteins. I mean, is it possible? If you're just doing scoops and scoops of almond butter or straight up butter, it's possible. But if you're eating at a normal pace and you're eating vegetables and protein sources and good fats together, and you're not chowing things down super fast, I recommend eating till you're about 80% full, and then kind of giving yourself 5 or 10 minutes to kind of let things digest, because sometimes there can be a delay in that satiation signal, and that kind of helps your body be like, okay, yeah, I'm good. You actually had enough. You just got to give yourself that, eat till you're 80%, not till you're 100%, and give it that 5 or 10 minutes to kind of get that feedback loop back up to the brain and be like, yeah, I'm satiated. I'm good. So that's kind of my big strategy on the calorie side. And then of course, eat the right foods. When you do too much carbohydrate, you don't get the satiating signal that you get with fats and proteins. That's why the Pringles commercials of the 90s, everyone knows it. If you're that old, once you pop, you don't stop, right? Or everyone has the experience of buying a pizza and eating it, back in their college days to their whole face, right? They eat the whole thing. Why? Because you don't
Lay's.
quite get, the Lay's chips. You don't get that satiation signal, or it comes way late in the game, and that's why you can overeat carbohydrates. It's much harder to overeat, let's say, a dozen eggs, right? You'd be nauseous because of all of those compounds, CCK, etc., that would make you feel really nauseous.
You know what we ought to do? We ought to do one of those reacts video where you'll see like health practitioners react to certain videos. You and I need to pull up like a bunch of commercials from the 80s and 90s and just share our thoughts on them, because it's really sickening if you think about it. Like the Lay's motto, wasn't it? I bet you can't eat just one.
Yep.
It's like, well, duh, because you're getting no satiation, you're getting no leptin response from that nutrient devoid food with hydrogenated cottonseed oil on it.
And they're also putting a lot of stuff in there to stimulate appetite. They're putting more things to stimulate it, right? They're using a lot of sodium in there. They're putting a lot of MSG and flavor enhancers. And then don't even get me started with the low fat phase where they started adding in the olestra. And the olestra was a fat, but it was undigestible. So you'd get disaster pants after you consume it because your body couldn't break it down. So you'd have the fat, you taste the fat, but then it would go out your pants. It was pretty disgusting.
That's terrible.
You remember that stuff, the olestra in the late 90s?
Yeah, it's absolutely horrid. I can't believe what Americans have gone through in terms of the food supply. If you were someone who lived in a rural area, maybe you bought your food from farmers back then and you kind of avoided supermarkets, maybe you dodged a lot of this. But unfortunately, a lot of people are victims to what's happened with the food supply. So this is just more reason to connect with your farmer, buy your food locally. It's going to have better soil density of nutrients, hopefully. You're going to have less transit time, so therefore you're not eating blueberries from Mexico that were picked way too early and they didn't develop and were
nutrients.
not picked at the peak. So there's a lot of benefits to going local with your food supply. I could go on a whole rant about that, but regarding the satiety hormone stuff with the foods, it's huge. I mean, and so that message, the 80% full thing, goes to all those people. And this was me. I'm going to admit it. This was me. Even though it was like a grain-free cookie, almond flour or something with coconut sugar, I would eat a meal and I'd be like, I'm not satiated enough. I need to have something sweet. And it's like I wasn't getting that full signal. And once I've detoxed the mold, I don't have that anymore. And if I just sit there at the table for a couple extra minutes, all of a sudden, oh, you know what? I am full. I don't need anything else. And we have that report all the time from people like, oh man, I got to go run and get my piece of chocolate after the meal. If that's you, then there's something not right. That's not, now it's a common response, but common doesn't mean normal. So if you eat a grass-fed steak, a baked sweet potato, butter and cinnamon, and a big old fat plate of some butter with broccoli, and you don't feel good after that, and you're still running for the cookie or the chocolate, investigate, because there's something going on.
And it's okay if someone is having a little bit of dark chocolate after a meal. Just make sure it's going to be lower sugar, high in the cacao, so then you're not getting much carbohydrate and you're getting a lot of nutrition in that. Or just choose the healthier option. Maybe it's some low sugar coconut yogurt with some fresh blueberries in there, right? So we can always, kind of look at making your fruit, making it like a dessert almost, right? So if you're going to do some low sugar fruit or put some good fats in there, that way, 1, there's good fats, 2, there's not a whole bunch of sugar, and 3, there's a lot of nutrient density there. So you can kind of still kind of have that little bit of satiation and that like dessert feel without having all the side effects.
True. And it's totally awesome and beneficial to do that. I'm not trying to demonize it or make it seem like you should never enjoy yourself. That's not what I'm saying. But just for those people that say, I have to have it. Like if I don't have my chocolate, you don't want to be around me. Those things, that's when it seems like it's an excess. But just for enjoyment, yeah, I think you could do some awesome stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like a 50% dark chocolate or milk chocolate, right? A whole bar or half a bar is going to have 20, 25 grams of sugar versus you go have a dark chocolate maybe at 88%, like an endangered species brand. Well, now you're at 4 or 5 grams. So you see how that's a 90% reduction in the sugar just from choosing one dessert over another dessert. So it's a totally big difference there. So if you guys are like, hey, I want something, just choose the healthier option.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
And the dark chocolate thing too, even if it is super high dark chocolate content and it's not much sugar, if you're going for that too often and you're emotionally sensitive and it's comforting you to have that, then your endorphins are probably burned out. We measure that on organic acids testing all the time. We'll ask those people, if I see a commercial, it's not even sappy, but I cry, and I have to have dark chocolate every day, well, then you got an endorphin problem, most likely. But that's a whole other podcast. We'll save that for a brain chemistry show.
Exactly. Like my go-to right now has been just like some really nice, clean, unsweetened coconut yogurt with a little bit of cinnamon and maybe some fresh blueberries or strawberries. Something really simple, nutrient-dense with some good fats, and just trying to keep that mindset of eating till you're about 80% full is a good indication, because that 80%, once you stop eating, you may notice you start getting full for the next 10 or 20 more minutes even without eating, because that signal is just a little bit behind. So that's why it's good to have that mindset, so then you're not eating till you're 100%, and then you're like, whoa, I got to undo the belt buckle a notch or two. It's like Thanksgiving Day dinner, right? That's what we want to avoid. Feeling where it's uncomfortable to move, right? We should be able to move comfortably afterwards.
Yeah, that's a good signal. We talk about that too with HCl production and such. If you eat and then you need to go lay down, something's not right.
Yep, exactly. Well, anything else you want to highlight, Evan? I would just say to the listeners, if they want to dive in deeper and they feel like they need a next step person and a coach to help them get to that next level, head over to evanbrand.com. You can schedule with Evan. Head over to justinhealth.com. You can schedule with myself, Dr. J. If you want to dive in deeper, sometimes these tests are necessary, or maybe you've already gone a lot of the route that we talked about and you're ready for those next things, or there could be a hormone issue or a toxic stressor and you want to rule it out. That'd be your next step. Anything else, Evan, you want to add in?
No, that's it. You did a great job. Check out the sites, justinhealth.com, evanbrand.com. Thank you for being there, and we enjoy having you on the other end of the microphone, so stay tuned. We'll be back next week.
Excellent. And people that are listening, if they have friends or family that could benefit, please give it a share. Put your comments down below. We want to know what you think, whether it's future topic ideas or just comments on today's show. And make sure you hit the bell and hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get notifications of great content coming your way. All right, Evan, you have a great day, man. Take care.
Take care. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.